You're standing at the edge of a valley 40,000 years ago. Smoke rises from a fire pit across the ridge, but it's not your fire. It's theirs. A group of Neanderthals, broader, stronger, colder-eyed than you, watching you from the tree line. You've never spoken to them. You never will. Not with words they'd understand. But you already know one thing. Only one of your kinds is walking out of this valley in the next few thousand years, and it's not going to be a war fought with spears. So what actually happened when two different species of human met on the same land? Let's find out. For most of history, we assumed we were alone. We weren't. Neanderthals lived across Europe and Asia for over 300,000 years before modern humans ever arrived. They weren't the hunched, dim-witted cavemen of old textbooks. They had brains slightly larger than ours. They made tools, controlled fire, buried their dead, and survived brutal Ice Age winters that would kill most people today in hours. In 1856, workers in Germany's Neander Valley found strange bones in a limestone cave. Thick brow ridges, a skull unlike anything modern. It took scientists decades to accept what they were looking at. A completely different human species, one that had been extinct for tens of thousands of years, but had lived, hunted, and thrived on this exact continent. They weren't a failed prototype of us. They were their own successful species, for far longer than we've existed. Around 50,000 to 60,000 years ago, modern humans began migrating out of Africa into Europe and Asia, territory Neanderthals had occupied for hundreds of thousands of years. This wasn't empty land we were walking into. It was already home to another kind of human. For roughly 5,000 to 10,000 years, both species overlapped in the same regions. Same rivers, same hunting grounds, same caves, two different human species, sharing a landscape neither had ever expected to share, and we know they didn't just avoid each other. In 2010, scientists sequenced the first Neanderthal genome. What they found rewrote human history. Nearly every person alive today with non-African ancestry carries somewhere between 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Not as a metaphor. Actual genetic material passed down from real interbreeding tens of thousands of years ago. This means at some point, a Neanderthal and a modern human had children together, and their children survived, and had children of their own. Over and over until that DNA is sitting inside millions of people right now, including possibly you. Some of that inherited DNA affects skin tone and hair in cold climates. Some affects immune response. Some, more unsettling, is linked to increased risk of depression, blood clotting disorders, and even how severely people react to certain modern viruses. We are still living with the genetic consequences of a meeting between two species that happened 50,000 years ago. If we interbred, if we shared land and possibly cooperated at times, why are Neanderthals extinct and we're not? This is where it gets brutal. Reason 1, population math. Genetic studies suggest Neanderthal populations were small, likely only tens of thousands of individuals across their entire range. Modern humans arriving from Africa came in larger, more connected groups. Small populations are fragile. A bad decade of disease or famine can wipe out a small population entirely. It just takes longer to wipe out a large one. Reason 2, diet and body cost. Neanderthals had heavier, more muscular builds adapted for cold weather ambush hunting at close range. That muscle needed enormous caloric intake. Some estimates suggest nearly double what a modern human needed daily. In a world where food was never guaranteed, that's an enormous liability. Reason 3, social networks. Archaeological evidence suggests Neanderthal groups were small and isolated, with limited contact between distant bands. Modern human sites show evidence of trade across huge distances. Shells and materials found hundreds of miles from their origin. We weren't just individuals surviving, we were connected. If one group struggled, they could trade with, learn from, or absorb people from another. Neanderthals, more isolated, didn't have that safety net. Reason 4: climate whiplash. Around 40,000 years ago, the climate swung wildly, cold snaps and warm spells in rapid succession. Species finely tuned to one environment struggle when the environment keeps changing. Modern humans, generalists by nature, adapted faster. Reason 5: us. Direct violent conflict almost certainly happened. But most researchers now believe outright warfare wasn't the main cause of extinction. It was slower. Competition for the same shrinking resources. Modern humans simply outcompeted them for food, territory, and long-term survival generation after generation until the numbers never recovered. The most recent confirmed Neanderthal remains come from Gibraltar, dated to around 40,000 years ago. Isolated at the edge of the continent, likely one of the last surviving populations, pushed to the furthest edge of the map with nowhere left to retreat to. They didn't vanish overnight. It was a slow fade, generation after generation, until one day the last Neanderthal on Earth died. And there was no one left of their kind to know it was the last one. We didn't wipe them out with weapons. We simply outsurvived them, outadapted them, and in some quiet, strange way, absorbed them. Right now, in your own cells, there might be a fragment of a species that no longer exists anywhere else in the universe. The war wasn't loud. It didn't end with a battle. It ended with silence and a genome that remembers what history forgot.